Jada Pinkett Smith. Devaluation of Will Smith, Part 2, Video Analysis. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor, and welcome back to my expert analysis of the Red Table talk that took place between Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith to enable you to understand what's precisely going on as you witness him being devalued again and again by his narcissist wife. Let's get straight back into the footage and learn what's going on.
And from there, you know, you and I were going through a very difficult time.
Yeah.
And we decided...
I was done with your ass.
Yeah, you kicked me to the curb.
I was done with you.
Yeah.
Marriages have that, though.
Yeah,
Marriages have that.
Yeah, we basically, we broke up.
We decided that we were going to separate for a period of time, and you go figure out how to make yourself happy, and I'll figure out how to make myself happy.
Well, at that particular point in time, it was indefinite.
Yeah, I really felt like we could be over. You know?
We were over.
And then what did you do, Jada?
Well, you know, I think from there, you know, as time went on, I got into a different kind of entanglement.
Halting the footage at 3 minutes and 49 seconds of the original timing, what have we learnt in this segment? Well, it commences with Jada Pinkett Smith stating, "From there, you and I were going through a very difficult time." Will Smith responds, "Yeah, I was done with your ass." Now, at this point, that might have been seen as a challenge, but that's likely to have been the truth, and therefore Jada Pinkett Smith's narcissism harnesses that truth, and therefore she states that it was a very difficult time and accepts that he was done with her, and therefore it isn't a challenge because he's merely recounting what she sees as the position. We don't know specifically why they were having a very difficult time, but of course, generally speaking, it's because Will Smith finds himself in the sustained devaluation, where he's subjected to various malign manipulations designed to assert control over him, draw fuel from him, gain character traits and residual benefits. Notice that Smith then comments, "Marriages have that, though. Marriages have that." And this shows that he's blinded by his emotional thinking. Many people fall into the trap of thinking, well, relationships have their ups and downs, don't they? And therefore, you have to stick it out. You have to work through it. That when you're married, you took those vows, didn't you? For better or for worse. But the point is that many people fall into the trap of not realizing that a relationship has ups and downs not because of the relationship itself, but because of the outside world and its influences. So, for instance, one party's tired, so they might get a little bit snippy. The other party might have problems at work, so it causes them to be less patient at home. One of them might lose their job, which places pressure on the household budget. The behaviour of their children causes them to be exhausted, and they've got less time for one another. What people don't consent to is being abused. And they fall into the trap of thinking, well, the problems in our relationship, that's just part and parcel of the vagaries of a relationship, isn't it? No, it's abuse. And there is a clear distinction between the application of an external stressor, which reduces emotional empathy for a short period of time so somebody's behaviour is less than pleasant, than comparing it with the sustained abuse. And in order to understand that, many people who are the victims of a narcissist haven't actually experienced what a healthy relationship looks like, so they're not able to draw that comparison. They fall into that way of thinking, that believing that the abuse that they're experiencing is just part and parcel of the up and down of a relationship. It isn't. There are ups and downs in a relationship caused by external events, but they're not abusive relationships. And those people stand shoulder to shoulder dealing with what the world throws at them. Where you have a relationship that's up and down because of the behaviour of one of the parties, because they're abusing the other, that is not the marriages go through that because it's part and parcel of a relationship. That is abuse, and making that distinction is hugely important. Jada Pinkett Smith states, yeah, basically we broke up. Will Smith confirms, We decided we were going to separate for a period of time, and you go figure out how to make yourself happy, and I'll figure out how to make myself happy. I suspect, however, knowing the narcissistic dynamic, that this was more of an instigation from her than from him, and, in the way that he has become to be conditioned, he went along with this. She states, well, at that particular time, it was a definite. And then comes out the rictus grin, the incongruous response once again. Will Smith states, I really felt like we could be over. Notice he says felt. Not we were over, or it was definitely ended, but I felt that this could be the end. She is quick to point out, no, we were over. She corrects him. A very firm assertion of control. And the reason, of course, that she's doing that is to excuse the behaviour that we'll hear about presently. Will Smith then poses a question of her. And then what did you do, Jada? This is a challenge to her. He's holding her to account. And therefore that threatens her sense of control. She has to deal with this. And she states, well, I think as time went on, I got into a different kind of entanglement with August. Different kind. So what she's basically saying is she sees her marriage as a form of entanglement also, and this was just a different kind of one. And that belies how she sees unconsciously marriage as a shackle upon her sense of control. That she sees it as an entanglement that is ensnaring her, which, of course, her narcissism does not want. It has to be the other way around. Furthermore, she uses this euphemism. She conducted an affair, although in her world it isn't, because A, it was definitely over, and B, it's an entanglement. And if she says that's what it is, then that's what it is. There's a dose of word salad here, and it also demonstrates the alternative perspective that she operates by in order to reject the attempt to pin her with accountability for having an affair. It wasn't, it was an entanglement, and that's something different, which means I was allowed to do it. And no, we were definitely over, which means I'm not at fault. Nullification of the threat to control posed by Smith's question, assertion of control once more.
With August. One thing I want to get clear about and clean up, one of the things that was kind of swirling in the press about you giving permission, which is, the only person that can give permission in that particular circumstance is myself.
Yes, exactly.
Pausing the analysis at the original footage at 4 minutes and 10 seconds. Jada Pinkett Smith states, one of the things I want to clear up that was already swirling, and then we see the robot polish hands once again, in the press about you giving permission, which is, the only person that can give permission in that particular circumstances is myself. That is the embodiment of her narcissism there. Haughty, dismissive, arrogant, and the assertion of control, and once again the grin makes its presence felt. Of course, the notion that you exercise permission over yourself with regard to other people makes sense, but the manner of which it's being done in this dynamic is basically saying, whatever you have to say, August, doesn't matter. Whatever you have to say, Will, doesn't matter. I'm the one that gives permission in these circumstances. I give permission over what happens. I am the doer. I am not the done to. And that's the embodiment of her narcissism, asserting control in that way. Of course, the response that comes from Smith is, yes, exactly. Although this is said in the manner of a man who has been indoctrinated into accepting her views and her control. He looks defeated. He looks on the cusp of tears.
Yeah. But what August was probably trying to communicate, because I could actually see how he would perceive it as permission because we were separated amicably.
Yeah.
And I think he also wanted to make it clear that he's not a homewrecker, which he's not.
I think, so, I mean, because this is your red table and you brought yourself to the red table. I think you need to say clearly what happened.
As far as what?
You and I.
Halting on 4 minutes and 40 seconds, the segment starts with, But what August was probably trying to communicate, because I could actually see how he could perceive it as permission, because we were separated amicably, and I think he also wanted to make it clear he's not a homewrecker, which he's not. Now, in the context of what's been discussed, that's a word salad. Little segments of it make sense, namely, he wants to make it clear that he's not a homewrecker, and I'm telling you that he's not, assertion of control. But read as a whole, what does it actually mean? And it's there, in essence, to assert control by looking to bamboozle Will Smith. Will Smith responds by stating, I think this is like your red table, and you brought yourself to the red table, and I think you need to clearly say what happened. This response of Smith prompts an interesting and insightful opportunity to examine the response of Jada Pinkett Smith. You ought to have noted, and if not, do feel free to go back, you will have noted that as Will Smith is talking about the red table aspect, Jada Pinkett Smith is sat in her guru pose. She's staring at him. The narcissist smirk is on her face, which is evident as she's being well fueled by his responses. And her unconscious sense of control is intact. All is well in Narcville at that juncture. However, when he says, you need to clearly say what happened, look how, on the close-up, her expression changes. Immediately, the smirk drops. It's gone. It doesn't melt away, it's dropped. Her look turns to one of, who do you think you are to ask me a question of that nature? Her haughtiness. Her lack of accountability. And then she says, as far as what? This is her narcissism seeking to assert control by muddying the waters. It's clear what he's referring to. He wants her to be clear about what happened with regard to the affair, or, using her language, entanglement. But of course, that's a threat to control, and therefore, in an attempt to muddy what's going on, her narcissism seeks clarification by saying, as far as what? Will Smith continues, you and I decided we were going to take our space, and what happened? Jada Pinkett Smith responds, yeah, and I go into an entanglement with August. That's what I said. Notice that her response is almost slightly petulant. She's asserting control. She repeats by saying, that's what I've said. I've already told you this. Basically, I've already explained this to you, Will, and I'm the one that's being consistent. Why don't you get it? What's wrong with you? Are you a bit stupid? Are you being deliberately obstructive and not getting it? Her narcissism compels her to take the view that he doesn't essentially know what he's talking about, and that he must actually be deliberately obtuse, because it's clearly obvious what I was saying. It's clearly the case of what I've explained to you. A moron could get this. So you must be deliberately being awkward, Will, by not getting it. A 5-year-old understands what I'm saying to you, so all I can conclude is that you're the problem. You're the awkward one. Those of you that have been ensnared by a narcissist will know repeatedly that instance whereby the narcissist makes it out that you're the problem, where you're seeking clarification in respect of what has actually happened. Will Smith then responds with entanglement. There's disbelief on his face, as if he's saying, what on earth is this shit that I'm listening to? Jada Pinkett Smith says, yes. Smith then laughs at this, more out of disbelief as what's going on, but she mirrors him by laughing along. Will Smith states, a relationship. He calls it what it actually was. And then, interestingly, in order to mirror him again and to assert control, Jada Pinkett Smith responds by saying, yeah, it was a relationship. Absolutely. So why didn't she say that the first time, rather than using this term entanglement? Well, the reason was, by admitting that it would be a relationship would suggest some form of wrongdoing and accountability on her part, and therefore making the event with August seem more monumental than it actually was, or, if it's somebody that's asking questions on the red carpet, monumentous. However, she calls it an entanglement in order to diminish what it actually is for the purpose of escaping accountability. But then, when it suits her, because of the compartmentalization of her narcissism, she can then admit that it's a relationship. So she effectively contradicts herself as to what she said earlier on, which demonstrates the facing both ways at once nature of narcissism and the fact that she compartmentalizes. She's mirroring in order to assert control by making Smith think that he's actually right with what he's labelled it as, but only with her permission. Yeah, relationship. That's what I said earlier, in effect. Jada Pinkett Smith then goes on to state, I was in a lot of pain. I was very broken. Here, she's starting to issue excuses for the behaviour, and she's doling out a pity play.
Decided we were going to take our space, and what happened?
Yeah, and then I got into an entanglement with August. That's what I said.
An entanglement?
Yes. Yes.
A relationship?
Yes, it was a relationship, absolutely. I was in a lot of pain, and I was very broken. Now, in the process of that relationship, I definitely realized that you can't find happiness outside of yourself. Mm-hmm. And luckily enough, you and I were also going through a process of healing in a much different manner. Mm-hmm. I would definitely say we did everything that we could to get away from each other, only to realize that that wasn't possible.
So,
pausing the footage at 5 minutes and 27 seconds from the original footage, what has transpired in this segment? Well, it began with Jada Pinkett Smith stating, well, in the process, that relationship, I definitely realised that you can't find happiness out of yourself. Answers on a postcard as to what the fuck that means. It's more word salad. It's deflection. It's an assertion of control over August. He's on the radar, remember, because he's being discussed. And as you know, when you're not on the radar, it's as if you don't exist in the world of the narcissist. You simply are dead to us. But when you come up on the radar, for instance, you send us a text message or you telephone us, or you walk past our window and we can see you, or we see an advertisement and the person in the advertisement reminds us of you, or we smell a fragrance that reminds us of you, or somebody mentions your name that we're reminded of you. This and many other ways you come up on the radar. And when you do, our narcissism asks the first question, is this individual under control, yay or nay? And if nay, they must be brought under control through the 3 assertions of control, direct, indirect, or through withdrawal. In this instance, Will is on Jada's radar because she sat in front of him. August is on the radar because he's been mentioned. And therefore, she has to assert control over both of those individuals and, of course, the viewers of the Red Table Talk. She's asserting control over Will by basically saying with this comment, you fail to make me happy. That's why I can only get happiness out of myself. So she devalues him further. She also suggests, of course, that as a consequence of this process that she went through, even though she had this dalliance, stroke affair, stroke entanglement with August, he also failed to make her happy. And therefore, she devalues him by smearing him to Will Smith. This is the haughty dismissiveness that she exhibits. Now, Will Smith murmurs his agreement to this, which means he signals he's under control and provides her with some fuel, and because he agrees with what she said, it also allows her unconsciously to feel a sense of control over August as well. Although, when he murmurs his agreement, he has the look of a man who's thinking, what the fuck is this shit that I'm listening to? But he doesn't articulate it. She continues, and luckily enough, you and I were also going through a process of healing, there's that word again, in a much different manner. This talk about healing is part of the false compassion, and it's a word salad. What the hell does all of that actually mean? She continues, I would definitely say we did everything that we could to get away from each other, only to realise that wasn't possible. Again, what does that mean? More word salad, more deflection? And notice, the conversation has got away from talking about her affair with August. And it's all about the, you can't find happiness out of yourself, and there's healing and we are getting away from one another, but we actually couldn't. So the attempt to make her accountable for what she did is failing, and it's enabling her to nullify that threat to control because she's setting the agenda of the conversation. And a clearly exhausted and run-down Will Smith, he's asking the questions, but it's a little bit like watching a boxing match between one fighter who's had a really good night's sleep and has been training and is well fed, and somebody who hasn't trained in years, has been kept up all night and looks absolutely shattered. It's a bit of a one-sided match at the moment. This segment demonstrates once again the way that she continues to assert control over Will, and does so with the convoluted word salads, so beloved of her particular type of subschool of narcissism, and that it's moved away from the accountability issue because the conversation has moved away from talking about what she had done and her behaviour. Join me in part 3 as we continue this fascinating analysis of the Red Table Talk and witness the continuing devaluation of Will Smith.